The wind howled across the endless plains of Montana that night, sweeping dust and sorrow across miles of empty land. In the middle of it all stood a small, aging ranch, fences half fallen, windows cracked, and the faint glow of a lantern fighting the dark. Inside, Elias Carter, a man in his late 50s with weathered hands and tired eyes, sat at his wooden table, staring into the silence. He was once a proud rancher, a husband, a father, until life stripped it all away. His wife, Margaret, had passed 3 winters ago. His only son had left the ranch right after the funeral, chasing a city life that didn't include dust, cattle, or the smell of horses. Elias hadn't heard from him since. Now, every day was the same. Feed the cattle, fix the fence, drink black coffee, stare at the horizon, and whisper to ghosts. The loneliness wasn't loud, it was quiet, the kind that settled into your bones until you forgot what laughter sounded like. That night, as the storm outside grew wild, Elias poured himself a small glass of whiskey and leaned back in his creaking chair. Then, a knock. It startled him. Nobody came out this far. Not in the middle of the night. Not in the middle of nowhere. He grabbed his old rifle and cracked open the door. Standing there in the blizzard was a woman, soaked to the bone, clutching a torn suitcase and shivering violently. Her bonnet was half blown away, her shoes caked in mud, and her lips trembled as she whispered, "Sir, please, I have nowhere else to go." Elias blinked. For a moment, he thought she was a mirage, a ghost conjured by loneliness. But she wasn't. He lowered the rifle. "Come in before you freeze." She stumbled through the door, collapsing near the fireplace. Elias threw on more wood, the flames crackling to life. When she finally caught her breath, she introduced herself. "My name's Clara Bennett. I came here as a mail-order bride." Elias frowned. He hadn't heard that word in years. She looked barely 30, with dirt on her face but a strange, fragile dignity in her voice. She explained through tears that she'd come by train from Missouri to meet a man named Thomas Rayner, a rancher who had placed an ad for a wife. But when she arrived, she found out he'd been killed in an accident just days before. With no family, no money, and nowhere to return, she had wandered for miles through the storm, hoping, praying, for shelter. Elias's jaw tightened. He didn't know her. He didn't trust easily, but something in her voice, that quiet desperation, reminded him of himself. He brought her a blanket, a bowl of stew, and an old quilt his wife had sewn. "You can stay the night," he said gruffly. "Just tonight." The hours passed slowly. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, the 2 strangers sat by the fire, a widowed rancher and a lost young woman, both running from pain that didn't have a name. Clara noticed a small photograph on the mantel, a smiling woman and a young boy beside a younger Elias. "She was your wife?" she asked softly. Elias nodded, his eyes distant. "She was everything good I ever had." For a long moment, the fire filled the silence. Then, Clara said, "I lost someone too. My father. He used to say, sometimes God sends us to the wrong places just to find the right people." Elias didn't answer, but her words sank into him like warm rain on parched earth. He gave her his late wife's room that night. Before he went to bed, he stood by the door and whispered to the empty house, "Don't worry, Margaret, just one night, she just needed a roof." The next morning, the world was white. The storm had passed, leaving a peaceful silence across the ranch. Elias made breakfast, eggs, biscuits, and coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Clara smiled for the first time. Since she'd arrived, she offered to help with chores, milking the cows, mending the fence, feeding the horses. Elias almost said no, but something about the way she moved, steady, gentle, grateful, made him nod instead. Days passed, then weeks. One morning, she said, "I should leave soon." Elias felt a sting he didn't expect. "Where will you go?" "I don't know," she said with a small, sad laugh. "But I can't stay here forever. People will talk." He looked at her for a long moment. The loneliness that had ruled his life for years began to tremble, like an old wall about to fall. "Let them talk," he said quietly. "You've given this place life again." Clara looked down, tears filling her eyes. "You saved me when I had nothing." Elias shook his head. "No, Clara, you saved me when I had no one." Spring arrived, turning the ranch green again for the first time in years. The laughter that had once died in those walls came back, soft at first, then brighter each day. Neighbors noticed. They'd see the old rancher smiling again. They'd see a woman hanging laundry in the wind, humming a tune. Rumors spread, but Elias didn't care. He hadn't felt alive in years. Then, one morning, as he was fixing the barn door, Clara came running with a letter in her hand, trembling, eyes wide. "It's from your son," she said. Elias froze. The letter said his son had heard from a neighbor that his father was ill, that he lived alone, bitter and broken. He was coming home. Elias looked up at Clara. "He's coming back," he whispered. When the young man finally arrived, tall, strong, and older than Elias remembered, he stopped at the gate, stunned to see Clara standing beside his father. The son's eyes flicked between them. "Who's she?" Elias opened his mouth to speak, but Clara stepped forward. "I'm Clara," she said. "A friend." The son hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Seems you've been taking care of him." She nodded. "He's taken care of me too." That night, as the three of them sat by the fire, Elias realized the truth, that family isn't always the one you're born with. Sometimes, it's the one you find in the middle of a storm. Weeks later, Clara packed her suitcase again. "I should go," she said softly. "Your son is here now. You have family again." Elias looked at her, really looked, and shook his head. "Clara, this is your home now, too. If you'll have it." Her tears fell before her smile did. Years later, when people spoke of the Carter Ranch, they didn't talk about the loneliness anymore. They talked about the kindness of the man who opened his door to a stranger, and found love again when he thought life was over. And if you ever pass by that ranch at sunset, you'll still see it, a small wooden porch, a rocking chair, a woman humming softly as a man sits beside her, watching the sun sink behind golden fields. Because sometimes, when you open your door to someone who has nowhere else to go, you find that you were the one who needed saving all along. Soft music fades. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories of kindness, faith, and second chances. Because somewhere out there, someone just needs a little light, and maybe that light is you. Sunrise.